Greetings, YouTube! I am Son of Sothis. Welcome to my channel. Normally I debunk conspiracy theories and make funny parody videos. But today, I'm gonna do something a little different. Recently I stumbled upon this video made by the gentleman known as Speckzo. The video is titled, Pagans Are Silly. In his video, he claimed that pagans have no morals or principles, and that pagans are savages. As I watched the video, I thought, you know what? This may be a good video for me to do a response to. And well, here we are. Hello, Speckzo. I know this may seem silly to you, but I'm a pagan. Yes, I know what you're thinking. I probably look silly to you. You know, this mask and this ridiculous voice. But appearances can be deceiving. Behind this mask, I'm actually a serious person. And I want to respectfully respond to your video, if you don't mind.
So I've been posting more about Jesus on my Instagram page recently, and that of course has brought out the LARPing pagans trying to save our Indo-European racial heritage, and it's really gay. Don't get me wrong, I went through my own little pagan phase too when I was watching that degenerate piece of human filth, Varg, who's a literal murderer, by the way.
For those of you who don't know who Varg is a Norwegian musician, a Germanic pagan writer and blogger, and apparently a convicted murderer, who does not represent the majority of pagans.
But just like I outgrew libertarianism, I outgrew paganism. Because like libertarianism, paganism is satanic and wrong. Now,
No, Speckzo, paganism is not satanic, nor is it wrong. Satan is a Christian concept. There is no Satan in paganism. And I don't know why he threw libertarianism in there. What does that have to do with paganism and Satan?
Now, I'm not saying everyone who identifies as pagan is a complete piece of
I cut off the swears. You're welcome.
I have a few pagan followers that are respectful and engage in civil discussions with me and aren't disrespectful, so I'm not trying to go out of my way to cause unnecessary infighting or drama, but I am going to stay true to my beliefs, and if you agree with me, that's fine, and if not, that's fine too.
Oh, good. That's good. I love dialogue. I'm the same way, Speckzo. I'm a really respectful man. I value dialogue with those who hold different beliefs than me. On my channel, I have some Christian viewers that are very respectful and engage in dialogue with me. And like you, my friend, I also stay true to my beliefs. And often, I tend to be brutally honest. That is just who I am.
So what is paganism and what are the problems with it? Well, paganism isn't just one thing. It's not a set structure of beliefs. It is a multitude of beliefs that were prevalent in Europe before the introduction of Christianity. It's polytheistic, believing in many gods like Zeus and Apollo and different weather gods, but there's no one unified, structured belief system of pagans.
Well, pretty much. There are different groups of pagans. There are Greek pagans, Celtic pagans, there are Norse pagans, Slavic pagans. Yes, there are different pagan faiths. But I don't see why that's a problem.
And paganism hasn't really been relevant for probably close to 1,000 years, but thanks to degenerates like Varg and these other esoteric white nationalist movements, more and more people are identifying as pagans and distancing themselves away from Christianity. They want to pay respects to their ancestors by believing in all this retarded shit. It isn't even a religion. It doesn't have any guiding principles or structure or solutions or answers to life.
Whoa. What do you mean that we don't have any guiding principles? And what do you mean by our religion is not a religion? What is that supposed to mean? Actually, as a matter of fact, we do have guiding principles. For example, I live by the Delphic maxims. Greek pagans follow the Delphic maxims as their guiding principles. And the Norse, for example, live by the 9 noble virtues. So what the heck are you talking about? What do you mean we don't have any guiding principles? You yourself should know this. I thought you said you were a pagan. Paganism is just as relevant a religion as Christianity.
But they believe that Christianity is Jewish and anti-white. And without fail, anytime I post something Christian on my Instagram page, I get comments or messages telling me that I worship a Jew on a stick or that I'm a Mossad agent.
What are you gonna do? Trolls are gonna troll.
So there's a lot to discuss. Firstly, Christianity is not Jewish. Christianity is the antithesis of Judaism. First of all, Jesus wasn't a Jew in the sense of modern rabbinical Judaism. And Jesus is the Son of God. He transcends race.
But wait, Jesus was born from a Hebrew woman, so would that technically make him Hebrew? Or Jewish? Regardless, Christianity itself is based off the Jewish religion. It's based off the Jewish people, the Jewish land, and the Jewish religious laws. And is based off Jewish prophecies. And is based off the worship of the Jewish God, the God of Israel, Yahweh. That's why it's called Judeo-Christian. Now, I do not have a problem with that. If you want to worship the Judeo-Christian God, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to worship Jesus, that's fine. But that's not the way I follow. I follow the gods of my ancestors, the Greeks. That's my faith.
And the whole point of Jesus coming here was because Jews had broken their covenant with God and were no longer the chosen people. That's what testament means. The Old Testament was the old covenant between God and Jews, and the New Testament is the new covenant between God and Christians. When the Bible talks about Israel, it's not talking about the nation state of Israel that was established in 1948. It's talking about God's chosen people. So once Jesus came, his followers became Israel. Christians are now God's chosen people. And the Jews back then who followed Jesus and converted were saved. And the ones who denied him and had him killed, the Pharisees, the ones who continued on the wrong path, are who modern rabbinical Jews are descended from.
Well, alright then. That's your faith. But you know what I never really understood? If Yahweh, the God of Israel, was supposed to be the God of the whole universe, and the creator of all mankind, why does the God of everything need a chosen people? Why? Why does he favor only one group of people like that? That sounds like a parent having their favorite child. Why did he only reveal himself to that group of people, but not everyone else? If that was the case, there would be no paganism. Everyone would be worshipping Yahweh. But in the Old Testament, he was only the God of Israel. So why did he only reveal himself to that one people, but not everyone else? Honestly, what made the Hebrew people more special than any other people?
And modern Jews don't even follow the Old Testament as their most holy book. They follow the Talmud, which tells them that Gentiles, or non-Jews, are only made to be slave to the Jews, and it also says that Jesus Christ is in hell, burning in boiling excrement.
And come to think of it, your Bible claims that our gods are demons, and that our goddess Diana is nothing more than a silver statue created by the hands of man.
So when people say that Jesus is a Jew, or that Christianity is some Abrahamic Jewish trick or whatever nonsense, they have no idea what they're talking about.
Well, I don't know about it being an Abrahamic Jewish trick, but they are not wrong when they say that Jesus was Jewish and that Christianity is based off the Jewish religion. It's actually true. But regardless, that's not a problem. If you want to follow that religion, go ahead. But I am not a Hebrew. I do not follow the Hebrew God or follow the Jewish religious laws. I follow the gods of my ancestors. That's where my faith lies.
They also say that Christianity isn't European, which this basically creates my main problem with these white nationalist types. A lot of people call me a white nationalist, and that is not what I am at all. I do not consider myself that, mainly because that term is now just a Fedpost term that has been completely perverted. But these people who call themselves white nationalists now, which a majority of these pagans would consider themselves, love to purity spiral. They believe in things like the one-drop rule, and if you're not 100% European, then you don't matter. And they can't even agree on who's really white. They don't think Italians are white. Some of them don't think that Irish people are white. Serbians aren't white. I posted that my wife was Brazilian, and somebody commented, "Wow, I thought you were pro-white identity. Looks like Mossad got me again." And I said, my wife is Italian. Her great-grandparents immigrated from Italy to Brazil. And they commented, Italians aren't white either. So I guess maybe like 2 countries in Europe are really white to them. And
Okay, 1, no. Most of us are not white supremacists. Most of us have nothing to do with them. And 2, what kind of people have you been listening to as a pagan?
the problem is they put all this emphasis on race to the point where it's basically racial fetishism. They basically just circle jerk each other on who's the whitest. Oh yeah, you're so white. No, I'm white. Yeah, tell me how white I am. Oh yeah, I love being white. You're so white.
What? What? Okay. What kind of nut jobs have you been listening to all this time? People that are that obsessed with skin color? What? Most of us pagans are not like that. We're not all obsessed with skin color. What kind of people have you been chatting with?
And don't get me wrong, race is important. Racial identity and race realism and physiognomy and phenotypes and in-group preferences and tribalism and homogeny are all legitimate and important, but it is not the end-all be-all. I've said this many times, where if you look at places like Iceland that are like 98% white, yeah, there's less crime, but they also have a gay prime minister, the abortion rates are sky high, and generally speaking, degeneracy is just running rampant. Why? Because they're mostly atheists and they have no structure or order based on Christian principles.
Really? Let's fact check that if you don't mind. Speckzo, I don't know where you got your information from, but the vast majority of Icelanders are Christian! And no, Iceland's current prime minister is straight. Well, Iceland did have an LGBT prime minister back in 2013. Oh, goodness, Speckzo, where have you been all this time? No! As I've already shown you, the vast majority of Icelanders are Christian. While Iceland does have a good number of pagans and atheists, regardless of the picture you're trying to paint here, no! Immorality and degeneracy is not running rampant in Iceland. Quite the opposite, in fact. And why would it matter if Iceland's prime minister is a woman who likes women or a man who likes men? Who the heck cares? That's not a problem. Let me clarify. It's not a real problem. Oh yes, and I checked. The abortion rate in Iceland is 14.1. So no, the abortion rates are not sky high in Iceland. And I know what you're trying to imply here when you say, oh, they don't have morals based on Christian principles. You don't need Christianity to have morality.
Yeah, we have a gay leader and women are killing their children and trannies and drug addicts are running around wild, but hey, at least they're white. It's retarded. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. In my opinion, there are 3 main things that you need to have a prosperous, functioning society. One is cultural and ethnic homogeny, meaning that you have to have a majority of the same type of people that make up the population in order to have unity and cohesion and trust and a common purpose. 2, you need Christianity, which is the foundation of morality and all things good and truth and life.
No, my friend, Christianity is not the foundation of morality. I've heard many claim this before. No, Christianity did not invent the concept of morality. And I know what you're implying here. The Hebrews did not invent the first code of laws. There have already been laws against killing, stealing, and bearing false witness. Before the Ten Commandments, there was the principles of Ma'at, followed by the Egyptians, and before that, there was the Code of Hammurabi, which seemed to inspire the Ten Commandments. So no, my friend, you don't need Christianity to have a prosperous society, or morality.
And 3, you need a government that ensures the preservation of your culture and way of life and doesn't allow it to get subverted. Now, these pagans think that they're honoring their Indo-European roots, but they actually have no real beliefs. Do you actually think that they believe in Zeus and Apollo and Thor or a 6-armed transvestite goddess? They use paganism as a costume, and these deities are just forms of idolatry used to retain a false sense of cultural significance.
Okay, Speckzo. You have made a lot of assertions in your video about pagans. But of all the assertions you made, that has to be the most insulting. You're gonna sit there and tell us that we don't believe in our gods? Really? Okay, look, Speckzo. I know this may sound silly to you, but I believe in the gods with all my heart. I do. In fact, the gods have actually helped me. They helped me turn my life around. You see, back then, I was a different person. I'm not the man I used to be. Back then, my life was not exactly going well. I was in a bad way. It's a long story, but in my time of trouble, when there seemed to be no hope, I turned to the gods. And let me tell you something. The gods have really helped me turn my life around. When I was down, the gods helped me back up. And when I was back up, I strived to better myself. I strived to improve my life. The gods have helped me through some difficult times. And as a result, my life is better than it was. The gods have blessed me with a great life, and I thank them for what I have every day. So to say that I don't really believe in the gods is just insulting. You know, Speckzo, it's easy to sit there on your rear end and insult us and mock us and claim that we don't believe in our gods. But how would you like it if someone claimed that you don't really believe in Jesus? How would you like it if we said, oh, you don't really believe in Jesus? He's just a concept to you, a costume. You don't really have faith in him at all. How insulted would you feel? Perhaps one day I'll make a video about my experience.
They want to respect their European roots, but there is nothing more pro-European than Christianity. Christianity saved Europe. Before the introduction of Christianity, Europe was a barbaric hellhole, filled with cannibals and savages eating each other and sacrificing themselves in satanic rituals to weather gods so that it rains to make their crops grow. There was no unity or care for human life beyond animal instincts or survival necessities. Christianity introduced morality, love, common good, and natural order. It introduced the importance of the family unit and monogamy instead of polygamy. It introduced integrity and doing the right things for the right reason, and not being selfish, doing things for the greater good of your people, of your nation, having a higher purpose, not being a slave to hedonistic desires.
Really? That's how you thought Europe was before Christianity? Who the heck taught you history? Do you honestly believe that before the arrival of Christianity, our pagan ancestors were nothing but savage barbarians, living in mud huts, sacrificing humans to bring the rain? Because honestly, you seem to think they didn't even have a civilization. Have you never learned about the great accomplishments of Greco-Roman civilization? The Greeks have laid the foundation of our Western civilization through their achievements in art, architecture, philosophy, science, medicine, mathematics, and governing. The Greeks have built impressive structures and created a culture that the ancient world looked upon in awe. The Greeks were the ones who invented democracy, a political system that gave power to the common people rather than a monarch. Democracy was later adopted by the Roman Republic and led to the creation of the Roman Senate. This was the forebear of our modern democracy. The Greeks lived by the Delphic maxims, moral principles taught to the Greeks by Apollo himself. These principles taught the people to value what's righteous, to have self-control, and have nothing in excess. These values were held by the very people that you like to call savages. I recommend you check them out. We already had civilization and moral principles before the arrival of Christianity. The coming of Christianity has led to the destruction of much of classical civilization and had a hand in bringing us into the Dark Ages. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that Christianity didn't contribute anything to Western civilization, but it's sad to see how much we lost as a result of Christianization. I don't know where you learned history from, but our pagan ancestors were not a bunch of savages eating each other and sacrificing each other in satanic rituals. Heck, they didn't have satanic rituals. They didn't even have a Satan. So that's irrelevant. Our pagan ancestors, the so-called savages, are the ones who started Western civilization. Honestly, I don't know why, but so many Christians just like to pretend that Western civilization didn't exist. Until, well, Christianity came. That's a load of BS. And as for the values you claim that the Christians gave the pagans, well, guess what, Speckzo? The pagans already had these values. Yes, that's right. Our so-called savage pagan ancestors already had these values. They already value doing things for the greater good, for the community, the nation, the people. They valued hospitality, kindness to strangers, and helping those in need. Heck, the very Delphic maxims actually advise you not to have things in excess. So yes, it also teaches you not to be a slave to hedonistic desires. Christians are not the only ones who have morals and principles. We pagans have those as well. And as for your little comment on polygamy, doesn't your Bible actually support it? There are quite a few cases where biblical characters have taken multiple wives. Why is that?
And look, I'm not saying that you can't appreciate and honor your ancestors' beliefs and lifestyle or whatever. That's fine. Some Christian traditions have roots in paganistic rituals, and some principles are even parallel, mainly because of St. Paul talking to Stoic philosophers when he established the church. But just because your ancestors did certain things doesn't mean we need to revert back to primitive savagery just to stick it to the Jews. Just because our ancestors did something doesn't mean that it was truth or the correct way of life.
Well, of all the nonsense you uttered throughout the video, that was actually good. Yes, we should not do everything our ancestors did. Our ancestors have done a lot of brutal things in the past, and a lot of disgusting things as well. You're right, just because our ancestors did something does not mean that we should do it today.
And refusing truth because of racial connotations is prideful, egoist, and wrong. And what exactly do you want to do? Put on Viking helmets and rip each other's rib cages out to see who's tougher and then tell each other we'll see each other in Valhalla? Shut the f up. You're retarded. And you're gonna burn in hell for eternity.
No, Speckzo, we are not gonna burn in your imaginary little torture chamber. Heck, that is just as ridiculous as telling a Christian that they're gonna burn in Tartarus. And you know what else is prideful, egoist, and wrong? Arrogantly claiming that only you have morality, while others are nothing but moralist savages. Now that's prideful, egoist, and wrong. And no, we are not gonna rip each other's rib cages out. Come on, we're not savages.
Also, speaking of Vikings, the majority of Vikings eventually converted to Christianity. Oh, and also like pagan symbolism, like the pentagram and the hexagram and the all-seeing eye, are all used in Freemasonry. And who controls Freemasonry?
I don't know. Who does control Freemasonry? Is it the Pope? The President? The Grand Druid of North America? Is it Bill Snowballen? He never really answers the question. Honestly, you see how smug he was when he said that? And who controls Freemasonry? It's like he thinks the answer should be obvious to us. Well, it's not obvious to us. Hey, Speckzo, we can't read your mind. We don't know who you think controls Freemasonry. Oh, and the pentagram was used by the Greek philosopher Pythagoras. It was later adopted by Christians to symbolize the 5 wounds of Christ. Oh, and the all-seeing eye originates in Christian iconography. That's right. The eye represents the all-seeing eye of God, and the triangle represents the Trinity, the Holy Trinity. You know, sometimes I would point this out, and Christians would respond by saying, "Oh, no, that's a Freemason symbol. Freemasons are evil." Well, where the heck do you think the Freemasons got it from? And I believe it's worth noting that the Christianization of the Vikings was a rather slow process. Many would still cling to their beliefs. And sadly, that would often result with Scandinavian kings trying to convert their people by the sword. It was a brutal time.
And don't get me wrong, I sympathize and understand how people can be turned off by Christianity, at least in modern day, because of how subverted most of the churches have become, and how they've been liberalized and modernized, especially with Protestants and evangelicals, and even a lot of Catholics to Zionism in Israel. I myself am having a hard time finding a church because of those reasons, as well as the fact that the church my family has been going to for decades, now the priests are all Indians or Vietnamese that barely speak English. So I understand that these types of issues can be hard, but that doesn't change its importance or necessity for Western civilization, for a prosperous society.
Well, I don't know about Christianity being necessary for a prosperous society, but let me ask you a weird question. Didn't we become a more prosperous society when we separated church and state? Didn't we become more prosperous and free when we secularized? Honest question.
So in conclusion, pagans are fake and gay. It's basically just idol worship that concerns itself with the physical, earthly senses and not what's spiritual and what's truth. Instead, they worship things like the sun and the moon and comic book characters like Thor and weather gods. And basically, somebody said that they worship the creations instead of the creator.
That has got to be the dumbest argument against pagans I've ever heard. No, Speckzo, we do not worship the creation. We worship the gods themselves. And really, Speckzo, comic book characters? Where do you think these comic book characters were inspired from? Look, Speckzo, you honestly know nothing about paganism. Which is actually funny, because I thought you said you were a pagan. Or is that just what you claim to be? You know, Speckzo, sometimes people will just call themselves pagan, but they don't practice anything. They don't worship the gods. They just say, "Oh, I'm a pagan," but do nothing about it. You know, Speckzo, it's one thing to claim you're a pagan, but it's another thing to actually be one.
And they believe that they're doing something noble when in reality our enemies would much prefer us to revert back to savage, hedonistic paganism than to follow Christ. Christianity is truth and the foundation of Western civilization.
Wrong! No, my friend. I've already demonstrated why that's not the case. And besides, our gods are the last ones our enemies want to see us worshipping.
Jesus is real, and he loves you. Stay safe, have babies, don't do drugs, and avoid high-interest loans.
Well, that's actually good advice. Now, much of what I said in this video, I actually said in a comment on this video. I thought he would like some respectful dialogue with a pagan. Yes, well, he ended up responding by deleting my comment. Well, so much for having a dialogue. Well, That's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed. Now please, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.